and Renny Show is brought to you by Johnston Group, Vittorio Rossi, Trans-Canada Brewing, Lou Ferlin, Cambrian Credit Union, and Homefield.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from Sportsnet. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after. I will say it. I wrote it into the byline of this show. That, to me, is clearly and easily the best game we have seen from the Winnipeg Jets in the 2023 calendar year. Mark it down. I know that there's going to be some people, if they're looking for reasons not to believe, will say that this is a back-to-back game. And while I will say this was, and I'll use the words that Jimmy Toth from CJOB had said to me, this was not the optimal game of the New Jersey Devils. But what I thought was great about this was the Devils brought their speed game. And they were flying and they were getting around the ice. And what I thought the Winnipeg Jets did was I thought they countered that. I thought they matched it. I think they went beyond matching it. I think they took the lead in this game. This was reason to believe. Now, I am looking in the chat room and people are getting extremely excited. I'll say this. If the Jets can continue playing like that, and I don't see a reason why they can't, I would be getting excited as well. Like, I'll say this. You want to know why people get frustrated with the Winnipeg Jets? It's because we know that they can look like this. We know that on a night like tonight, they can play a really, really good team and absolutely dominate them. And that's what we saw on this night. This was domination. This was better scoring chances. And boy, oh boy, if you are looking for, because I know a lot of times people will go and they will check, some of the advanced stat sites, the natural stat trick sites and things like that. And they'll cite how games are, somewhat different than the outcome. Natural stat trick tried to suggest that the New Jersey Devils were way ahead in high danger scoring chances tonight. Give me a break. That's ridiculous. This was dominant. The New Jersey Devils were nowhere near matching the Winnipeg Jets on this night. It was not close. This was the Jets absolutely taking it to the New Jersey Devils, who, yeah, they traveled last night. Yes, they played last night, but I'm not taking anything away from the Winnipeg Jets. This was the Rick Bowness blueprint. We've talked so much about it and how long has it been since we got to say this, but this was most doubtedly the Rick Bowness blueprint. Heavy on the forecheck, holding on to the puck, but getting it to the front of the net, trying to create opportunities in the process of doing that. But yet, and so this is interesting because we saw some seam passes like the Josh Morrissey gorgeous pass, seam pass across the ice, finds Pierre-Luc Dubois for the one-timer. The Mark Scheifele pass across the crease to Nikolai Ehlers on the breakaway, back of the net. This is a little bit of, people would suggest that this is snake charmer offense. I don't see it that way. I don't see it that way because the Winnipeg Jets had pushed, and it wasn't them sitting back and allowing Connor Hellebuck to try and steal the show and then head back the other direction and weave and bob and put the puck in the back of the net. And now they're up after being outshot 8-1 in the first 10 minutes of the game. This wasn't this at all. This was the Winnipeg Jets going out, taking care of business, getting the lead, which if you wanted to find out what the most important thing the Winnipeg Jets have done over the last little while, it's playing with the lead, because they get to play an entirely different game. They get to stay on their toes. They get to push rather than trying to get back into the game, open up their risk profile and end up on the wrong side of the puck. There's just so much to like here. And one of the things that you really, really have to get into liking is the line combinations. I mean, Nino Niederreiter on a line with Adam Lowry looks so good. So good. And of course, Nino Niederreiter out there making a difference on a night like this. Vladislav Namestnikov, again, I'll call it out the same way that I did when it was the trade deadline. Everyone who was so upset with what Kevin Cheveldayoff did at the trade deadline. Kevin Cheveldayoff went out and shrewdly for a very cheap price, got two players that have been two of the best players in the Winnipeg Jets lineup since they came into the lineup. When a lot of the stars went MIA on this team, those two players stayed in the fight that entire time, worked to drag this Jets team into the fight, gave, in my opinion, a model for the Jets star players to follow to get back into the fight. And so I'm not surprised to see now that the Jets are going that we're still seeing Vladdy Namestnikov is going. We're still seeing that Nino Niederreiter is going. And let's get back and hammer home the point that we have had made for some time on this show about the Vladislav Namestnikov, Blake Wheeler, and Nikolai Ehlers line that I advocated heavily and said it would be ridiculous if that line was taken apart. I will say this, people take me to task for my takes all the time. That is a rock solid take as I can remember putting on this show. That line looks absolutely phenomenal. There is no way that line should be broken up going forward. I mean, unless everything tails off, everything has an end at some point. But those guys get each other. And I loved Blake Wheeler's response after the game on why that line seemed to work so well. But take a look at Blake Wheeler's game. A couple of games ago, I criticized Blake Wheeler. There was a play where Josh Morrissey was headed down the ice. It was a 2-on-1. And he goes and shoots the puck to create a rebound, and Blake Wheeler is not there because Blake Wheeler is trying to pop back and get a one-timer and get one of these pretty goals rather than going to the hard areas. Tonight, the second goal scored by the Winnipeg Jets is a perfect example of why a big-bodied player like Blake Wheeler needs to go to the front of the net. He gets the puck, throws it out to the wing, and rather than going and trying to find a soft spot to go on the ice and do a tap in at the back door or something, he charges the net, 6'5", 220 or 25 or however much he weighs, of Blake Wheeler heading to the front of the net, redirects the puck, and takes every last ounce of the New Jersey Devil goaltender's attention. And that's why he goes there. The defender has to follow him. That gives Vladdy Namestnikov, Nino Niederreiter, a clear path to the front of the net, and he pops the puck into the back of the net. This is the style of hockey that will win you games right now when you need them. It's the style of hockey that will win you games in the playoffs. This is exactly what the Winnipeg Jets should be looking for. Reason for belief, everything was out there tonight as far as reason for belief. The next thing that needs to come is the consistency factor. I do know I've been looking in the chat room. I was watching a little bit earlier on because needed to kill a little bit of time. And someone in here was going absolutely off. I think it was former In Chevy We Trust and had changed his name to something else, but was going off on the people that he thought were haters because they were, saying negative things about this team. In the Core We Trust has been on a real heater in the chat room talking about that. Now, I think that he's targeting specifically, maybe the Malls of the world, the Mall Parises of the world, who clearly love to hop into the chat room and kind of stick a needle into everybody when things are going wrong. But I hope he's not talking about the people who are just very clearly pointing out the problems with this Jets team over the last little while, because there clearly has been problems. And the best evidence of that is they haven't looked like this. This is what the Jets can look like. This is what they're supposed to look like. This is the style of game that you try to build and get towards a playoff game when things are all said and done. The LA Kings, a team that I've talked about, and I've talked about how difficult the team they'll be to beat. They go after the trade deadline, pick up Gavrikov and pick up Korpisalo, and since then they have gone 9-2-2. They've got their game rolling into form. The Colorado Avalanche, 8-2 over their last 10 games, a team that's got their game rolling into form. You want to see the Winnipeg Jets rolling forward. Well, I've said this over the last little while. I don't know what the Winnipeg Jets identity was supposed to be, but if what we saw here tonight is the Winnipeg Jets identity going forward, then I think the Winnipeg Jets are in a very, very, very good place carrying things forward. Again, this is a team that was coming off a back-to-back. That was not the very best version of the New Jersey Devils that we saw there, but I don't think it was that far off of what they bring to the table. And to lay 6 goals down on them, that was impressive. I have to say that was impressive. More impressive than the score to me. Under 5 minutes left in the game, I'm watching the New Jersey Devils have the puck down in the Jets corner, and there was a war going on, an absolute war. The Jets defenders were trying to throw out as much punishment as they possibly could on the New Jersey Devils. Now, why this isn't a scenario where you're seeing a team like the Calgary Flames on Wednesday, a team that if you can kind of take your pound of flesh out of them going forward and maybe wear them down a little bit and affect them in their coming games, that it's worth doing that. They're not going to see the New Jersey Devils again this year unless both these two teams go to the Stanley Cup final. But that doesn't matter, and it shouldn't matter. And the Winnipeg Jets went out and treated the New Jersey Devils when they were up 6-0 with less than 5 minutes left in the game. They treated the New Jersey Devils like they were their sworn enemy and absolutely went at them. You want to talk about a 60-minute game? I don't think that the Jets hung it up right at the end when that goal happened. I mean, stuff happens. Puck ends up in the back of the net. The Winnipeg Jets battled from the drop of the first puck right until the end of the game. And that is something I don't think we've seen from this team for a long time. But the idea that the Winnipeg Jets took issue with every inch of ice, every puck they contested at every single point. There was a blocked shot from the point, a slap shot from the point that gets blocked by a Winnipeg Jet player at around 4:16 or something like that left in the game. These are the things that I can guarantee you. People can say what they want about the Winnipeg Jets and puck luck and all this different kind of stuff, and they were getting their opportunities, but they didn't go into the back of the net. Don't give me that. This kind of stuff that we saw from the Winnipeg Jets was missing from the Winnipeg Jets in the time leading up to what we have seen here in these last couple of games. What we saw here tonight, this is what wins you hockey games, is the battle level that we saw from the Winnipeg Jets. And I'm going to tell you something right now. I'm going to steal this from Kenny because I know he's going to go down this road, but Kenny has turned his screen on and is missing in action, ladies and gentlemen. Renny is always going to be here for you. I can't say the same thing about Ken Wiebe unless you lay out food for him that he can absolutely feast on when it's time for the buffet. But the Adam Lowry play on the goal that I was talking about earlier from Blake Wheeler. Blake Wheeler gives the puck away and puts the Jets in a terrible spot. It's a 3-on-1 for the New Jersey Devils. This is potentially a tie game after this situation and everything going in a different direction. And Adam Lowry fights back, steals the puck, throws it up to the Jets to put them on a 3-on-2, and it ends up in a goal. These are the kind of little battle plays that keep you alive in situations where you are about to be dead, keep you alive, put you over the top. Battling for every single inch of ice is the way that you win games. The Winnipeg Jets did that here tonight. They replicate that going forward. This team is in a very, very good spot as far as making the playoffs and potentially are capable of doing something when they get there if they're able to play like this. That's my take on this. Time to bring in the man with the best music in the business. Even though if he's not very prompt at times, he's got good music, and I'm sure you're going to forgive him. And all I have to do is play the music. So let's play it and bring him in. Here we go, everybody. Here comes Kenny.
Whoa.
Ken, I know you're the kind of guy who likes to sit down and stuff your face for 15 straight minutes at the buffet. I'm not that guy. I had to force feed myself. I felt like Homer Simpson getting force fed all the donuts in the world on that one episode. But it's nice that you finally showed up. I'm going to take a little more time away from you as a punishment. And the way I'm going to do it is by putting up Tishu's comment here. Tishu says, back-to-back music, Ken and the headband, let's go. I love this idea. 400 people in the chat room are watching right now.
Outstanding.
They deserve it. So let's bring it on. Let's make this a Sean's Headband version of the Kenny and Renny show. Here we go. All right, Kenny, no time to waste on this. You're looking great tonight. Someone already made a comment about how I'm looking tonight. This is fire. This is absolutely gorgeous. This is the kind of look that you can get, minus the headband, although I'm sure they could hook you up if you were to head down to Vittorio Rossi on Corydon Avenue. If you do, go see them and tell them that Kenny and Renny sent you. But make sure you ask for Frank and the boys, Frank or one of the boys. They will all do you up right. But you want to look like $1 million, Vittorio Rossi is the place in Winnipeg to go to do just that. Kenny, tell me what you saw out there.
Yeah, impressive showing. This was basically a show-me kind of a game for the Winnipeg Jets. We thought that the effort on Friday was solid, but we wanted to see if the Jets were able to do that against a very good team. And make no mistake, the Devils are a very good team. I think you did nail it, Sean. This was not the best version of the Devils, but there were times where Connor Hellebuck had to be quietly and understatedly very good in this hockey game.
Oh, I totally disagree.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
I could not disagree with you more.
Perfect. Yeah. As in when the game was still even, he had to make a couple of saves. The game was not in danger, but Hellebuck did his part. I'm not saying he was the star of the show, but he definitely was steady in the pipes. In terms of the offense, we weren't sure if it was going to be a one-off or not, Sean. This is a team that put up 6 after scoring 9 in 7 games. So were they going to do it again? Well, they did do it again. I don't think that it's necessarily the Jets' new formula or their identity. But Sean, you're right. After that last road trip, we weren't sure what the Jets' identity was, quite frankly. They weren't really defending great. They weren't scoring at all. Their power play was struggling mightily. And they weren't really sure what they were doing on that trip. There was effort, lots of effort. I just didn't see a whole lot of urgency. And I have seen a lot of urgency in the last 2 games from the Winnipeg Jets, which was exactly what we thought they needed to bring on this homestand, this 5-game homestand, which ultimately could determine their season. So I'm impressed by what I saw. It's no guarantee, and Sean, you said it perfectly in our post-game chat for sportsnet.ca and for Connected. It's not only the most important game of the homestand, it's a season-defining game with the Calgary Flames. Winner Wednesday probably wins the spot, right? I mean, there are other things that can happen. Yes, I understand there's 4 games, but the Flames are 2 points back. They might be even by the time Wednesday rolls around. The Chicago Blackhawks will roll into Calgary on Tuesday night to play. They could tie the Jets, and yes, the Jets would gain 1 game, and they would have 1 game in hand. And the important thing to remember, right now the Jets own the tiebreak, so the Flames will need to finish ahead of the Jets. The only way to do that probably for the Flames is to beat the Jets in a head-to-head. So the Jets are 2 for 2 on this homestand. They've been excellent in both games. They elevated their game against a better team after taking advantage of a Detroit Red Wings team. And now on Wednesday, they get to define their season. If they win the game, they've put themselves in an outstanding place. They will give themselves a 2-day break before they face the Nashville Predators, who are now 5 points back. Yes, they have games in hand, but that's an awfully big deficit to make up with the clock ticking and the sands in the hourglass kind of running out. So Rick said it. They're going to find out what they're made of. So far, what they've been made of has been impressive, but they're not nearly at the finish line yet. And we will see how they end up on Wednesday. I can't wait for the game. And in this business, we root for storylines. And Sean, the best storyline for Wednesday was the Flames winning tonight and staying right neck and neck in the race, right? So it'll be fascinating to see what happens. I think there were a lot of things to dig into from the game as well, and we will continue to do that as we roll along here. But excellent job for somebody said in the chat room, you've got me covered. That was very Johnston Group like, professional tap dancing right there by you. Thanks for your patience. I had to wait for the Flames result and bang out that 1,200 word story. I had the 27 or 2,800 word Weeb's World this morning. Leading off, I know you talked about the Kings and Gavrikov's edition. I wrote about Korpisalo in that column. If folks haven't checked it out yet, I'll put the link up shortly. But it was a fun Sunday. Building was involved. Connor Hellebuck was good. The offense exploded, and the Jets' power play even scored. So that's not happening every day these days. So, and I also as we shift gears before we get to the Lamplighter, what did you think of Rick? I mean, Rick obviously was very apologetic for wanting to throw his top unit out there in a 5-0 game, but I agree with him completely. He has to throw them out there because they're struggling. They need to get, especially now with Ehlers on that unit and the unit mostly looking better. They had to get out there, and I know that Lindy Ruff was not looking over at Rick Bowness saying, how dare you put your first unit out in a 5-5 game. They need to get them some reps. So they did. And yeah, I mean, we're going to get into Nikolai Ehlers in a minute, but he's been buzzing incredibly this stretch. But I'm going to step away. I'm going to leave some of the shrimp cocktail and the crab legs for the next trip down there.
I had it forced down my gullet already. There's nothing left. So let's get to the Lamplighter. What do you got?
Yeah, there's a whole variety pack of things, but we're going to go to something that we don't see very often, the penalty shot. I love the penalty shot goal by Morgan Barron. We've been talking about Morgan Barron a lot and how he deserves to probably have a little bit more ice time these days. And it's just kind of numbers game that has shuffled him down into the fourth line role that he is currently playing. And quickly, it was Kevin Stenlund with that block that you were mentioning, Sean, during the opening. With 4:17 to go, really impressive block by the fourth line. I love that you mentioned the battle, but the Jets were showing in the defensive zone.
Oh, yeah.
And just going back to Barron, I think he's just been absolutely playing great for the Winnipeg Jets in a limited number of minutes. Excellent hustle to get himself the breakaway and to be hauled down by Damon Severson. And an excellent move. People will say, oh, he didn't really do anything there. Well, no, he waited perfectly for Vanacek to open up the 5-hole and ripped it through the 5-hole when Vanacek was already trying to get back up after going down. So yeah. I'm going with that as my Lamplighter choice today. There were tons of great options. There was some temptation to go the Scheifele to Ehlers power play marker as the Lamplighter because it's taken them so long to get rolling, and because, Sean, you and I have been pounding on the Ehlers on the top unit drum for quite some time, and the Jets finally kind of relented. And oddly enough, Ehlers was in the Scheifele spot when Josh Morrissey found Pierre-Luc Dubois for the Brett Hullish one-legged one-timer down on one knee, Stamkos special. But ultimately, I think in a weekend where the Jets have an almost full bingo card, Sean, first line goals, second line goals, third line goal Friday, fourth line goal today, penalty shot goal, power play marker. About the only thing missing for the full blackout bingo would have been a shorthanded marker. But I'm going with the penalty shot goal by Morgan Barron as my Lamplighter, brought to you by the good folks at Trans-Canada Brewing Company.
So I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm going to go with the Nino Niederreiter goal. The reason I'm going to do it is...
come on. You're ruining the next block for me. Come on, I told you I was already using that.
Well, too bad. Hey, listen, I already ruined that in the first 15 minutes of the show because I was so mad that you made me take so much of that time. So I was like, I'm going to take his material then. I'll steal his material. That's
Buddy, I told you
do.
10:05 was the earliest I would be on. Come on.
I've got a good reason to do this. I want to say this every once in a while you'll hear me. And hey, listen, I've gone and I said I thought it was crazy when Rick Bowness took apart Vladislav Namestnikov off that line that he's on right now. And I still think it was the wrong move. And, everyone's got to have their opinion. I think people need to know, and I think I say it enough times out here, when I say something like that and I question an NHL coach of the caliber of Rick Bowness, that I do so knowing that Rick Bowness knows far, far, far more than I do, okay? I want to make sure I know that. So by the same token, when we point out mistakes that we believe are takes that players have been making, I want to make sure that people know. I realize that, hey, not for a second do I think that I could hop on the ice with these players and do something they did or ever could have done that in my life. So I want to make sure that if I'm calling something out and I see it, taken in the opposite direction, that I give credit for it. And that's why I give credit to that goal, because the most important part of that goal for me, I know what you thought was the most important part, and I'm not even going to talk about it because we can save that for the Johnson Group got you covered play of the game. But Blake Wheeler, and I talked about it earlier on the show, Ken, before you showed up here, I called out Blake Wheeler for that last game where he did not go to the net. Josh Morrissey shot a shot to get a rebound. Blake Wheeler should have been there. He wasn't. He was fishing for a one-timer, the likes of which we saw, a Brett Hull type one-timer that you saw from Pierre-Luc Dubois tonight, rather than going hard to the front of the net in a time where a team needs to get dirty, greasy goals. He wasn't doing the things, in my opinion, that he needed to do to create that. That goal that happens there tonight, other than how the puck gets onto his stick in the first place, that goal is entirely Blake Wheeler. He gets the puck, draws the defenseman in, moves the puck over, then busts to the net and gets past the defenseman that he just draw in and got on his toes rather than skating backwards towards the net, gets past him, gets the puck, redirects it to the front of the net, but his big body and his drive to the net forces the other defenseman to follow him in and the goaltender to fully commit to him. Nino Niederreiter scores that goal. The Jets get that goal because of everything that Blake Wheeler did in that situation, and it is the exact opposite of what he'd done in that last game where he didn't drive the net and didn't have an opportunity to put a puck into a wide open net off of a rebound. These are the little things that are the difference in the Jets game between the San Jose Sharks game and this game here tonight, and to a degree the last game that we saw against the Detroit Red Wings. This is the right thing to do. This is the right way to play. When Blake Wheeler plays like that, he is a force of nature. So because of that, I give that goal the Lamplighter of the game, because that kind of goal can be scored on October 5th, and it can be scored on June 13th.
June 17th.
When they're getting ready to hand out the Stanley Cup. And that mindset of being the player that's going to go to the net and make it happen rather than the guy who's just looking to pop a one-timer into the back of the net in an easy game against one of the last-place teams in the league, that mindset shift, to me, is a microcosm of what has the Winnipeg Jets looking so good over the last couple of games. That's my take anyways on my Lamplighter. We want to hear yours, and I know a ton of you have been sharing them already in the chat room. Continue doing so, because when you do, you are automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you with your own 8-pack, head on down to TransCanada Brewing Company. Join them in their tap room at 11290 Kenniston. They've got a beer store there, the second busiest beer store in the city of Winnipeg, and it's just stocked fully with TransCanada Brewing products. So what a badge of honor that is, that they are as busy as they are. And why are they busy? Well, it's not just the frosty, delicious Lamplighter Amber Ale. They've got the blueberry. They've got lots of IPAs. They've got sours. It is delicious. Everything there is the best. Never mind the fact that the pizza is absolutely out of this world. So get on down there and check that out. And hey, I've got a perfect way for you to get on down and check that out. The Kenny and Renny year-ender party. We don't have a date yet. That will come after the end of the season. But I have been reaching out and talking with fans who've been reaching out to me, and I've created a reserve list, Ken, 250 people is the capacity of that place. And I can tell you right now, on that reserve list, there is less than 60 spots left open on a reserve list of 250 people. So if you are waiting around to take your spot, don't wait any longer. We want to pack that room. We want to turn this into the biggest sports media / fan party that this city has ever seen. And we want you to be a part of it. So reach out to me at SN Sean Reynolds, or reach out to Ken, direct message us, set your tickets aside. By reserving tickets, it doesn't mean you have to lock down when it's time, because if the date we announced doesn't work for you, don't worry about it. Rennie's not going to be mad at you. We understand how this works. But the way to guarantee you get into that room is to get your name on the reserve list. Like I said, less than 60 spots left. And I can tell you right now that number is artificially high, because there's a number of media members who are going to reserve those spots who I haven't reached out to yet and are going to fill those spots. So please reach out as quick as you can. If you want to be there, we want to spend time with you. We want to get together. It's $20, gets you 2 drinks and all you can eat pizza, the best pizza in the city and the best beer in the city, in my estimation. We think it's a steal of a deal. You should be there, so do it. And I'm going to wrap this up by announcing the Lamplighter from our last game. That is Renee Laverne. You are officially on the clock, Renee Laverne. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name, which I assume is Renee Laverne, and an email where I can send you your voucher. You do that, you are going to have your very own frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at Trans-Canada Brewing Company, and of course, your friends Kenny and Renny. Ken, what do you got to say?
Yeah, we talked about this by text yesterday. Great. And folks, when you go and grab your 8-packs, thanks for doing what Dom Zappia did by showing a couple of pictures of heading down to TCB and picking up some things you enjoy. I think we love to see that. We know the good folks at TCB love to see that, and we talk a lot about community, and it's great when folks within the Kenny and Renny community are sharing their enjoyment of the products, if you will.
No doubt, no doubt. Ken, time to move on, and now you can get the thing I already stole from you, and you can drop us your Johnston Group.
Well, you didn't really steal it. You just threatened to steal it and made me a little bit nervous.
I stole it in the first 15 minutes of the show. I
don't care. That's fine. That's
Chat
fine.
room, let him know. Let Kenny know what Rennie did to him.
I heard it, buddy. I already heard it.
Back. Anyways,
I already heard it. It's okay.
What
The best part, you left out the best part of the goal. It was not the net drive, which was impressive, and it was not the cleaning up of the garbage.
I haven't said this already, people. Anyways,
I know you did say it, but it still doesn't mean it's not the Johnston Group. We've got
it
you
most
covered.
Definitely is.
Play of the game, and it was made. It was made by Adam Lowry after a turnover by Blake Wheeler inside the offensive blue line as the Devils' penalty expired. And had Adam Lowry not been on his toes and been alert, the Devils would have been well on their way to a 3-on-1, which could have turned the game around. Instead, Lowry pickpocketed the puck carrier, got the puck going the other direction with Nikolai Ehlers, and Ehlers finding Wheeler for the redirection, and there was Nino Niederreiter on the case for his 24th goal of the season, Sean, and his 6th since joining the Winnipeg Jets in 17 games. Yeah, 6th. He's had 18 with the Nashville Predators. He's now got 6 to get him to 24. What an addition, and I know that let's shift gears right away. Let's get into Namestnikov when we're done with the read here.
Okay, well, hold on. Yeah, let's give a shout out to the Kenny and Renny OGs. Of course, you know who that is. That is the Johnston Group. The Kenny and Renny OGs, been there since the beginning, had our back this entire time, just like Adam Lowry had the back of the Winnipeg Jets players, especially Blake Wheeler, who'd given away that puck and created that potential. Well, it was a 3-on-1 until it was broken up by Adam Lowry. So that is the perfect example of a got you covered play of the game, brought to you by the Johnston Group. And you won't find 2 businesses with the same challenges, but you will find 30,000 businesses with Chambers Plan employee benefits, proudly administered by our great friends, the OGs at the Johnston Group. Chambers Plan is Canada's #1 plan for employee benefits because it evolves with the way you work and live. The plan is run as a not-for-profit designed specifically to support small businesses, and its unique pooling strategy keeps rates stable so you won't have any surprises at your next renewal. Chambers Plan now comes with professional consulting on key financial, legal, and HR issues, and teledoc telemedicine services are included with every health option. See how Chambers Plan can benefit your business by visiting chamberplan.ca, brought to you by the Johnston Group, the absolute OGs of the Kenny and Renny show. Ken, you wanted to talk about Nick Ehlers. The chat room for a long time has wanted to talk about Nick Ehlers, and rightfully so. This is one of the times where the chat room, and I know some people had called out Nick Ehlers, but I feel like the chat room has been overwhelmingly in the camp of Nick Ehlers needs more opportunity to shine. While he's been given that opportunity, and man, oh man, he may be the best Winnipeg Jet that we've seen over the last couple of games.
Absolutely flying. It's been impressive to see. There's no doubt about that. Ehlers has been fantastic. I thought that his legs were really churning in both of these games. And, I spoke with Nikolai Ehlers kind of just around his locker before he addressed the, general media to talk about coming back from the injury, a couple weeks back, where he, kind of admitted that he was working his way through and trying to get his legs back up to speed. Yes, they were there initially when he came back from the sports hernia, but they got into a stretch of games where it was busy, and Nikolai Ehlers didn't have the same kind of explosiveness, which is natural when you look at the injury he's been dealing with. And in the last 2 games, he was absolutely flying. I thought it's been absolutely dynamite to see the way that he has played. His ice time is on the rise. He's on the first power play unit where he deserves to be, and he has done a very good job in terms of his puck management, in terms of limiting turnovers and those things. But he's generating opportunities both for himself and others. And the others in this case are someone who has been very good no matter where you put him, in Vlad Namestnikov, and Blake Wheeler, who has been nothing short of resurgent. I'm going to post, I wrote mostly about Wheeler at the top of my column here for the WrestleMania and wrestling fans. I do have a few wrestling references in here that I hope the good old AWA fans could appreciate. I just posted the story in the link, and it was interesting, Sean. Maybe it was probably unintentional, but Blake Wheeler did talk about the importance of having a little bit more time between games. And we know he didn't have his best legs on that last road trip and for, I would say, a chunk of March. But he had his legs the last 2 games, and that's the type of Blake Wheeler performance the Jets need from him in these last 5 games of the regular season. And, we mentioned when Blake was struggling, and we are now mentioning when he is producing, like we did when he worked his way up to 50 points, and now he's at 50, 54 now, I think. But it's been an impressive resurgence, and quite frankly, the Jets needed that type of resurgence from Wheeler, Sean. He's up to 54 points. That's 5th on the team. And what we talked about, there were some empty calories points during that stretch. These are not empty calories points by Blake Wheeler. They are him churning his legs, getting involved. His play to seal out Jonas Siegenthaler on the first Ehlers goal is vintage Wheeler. Even though by his own admission, he's not skating like he was as a 25-year-old, and you can't expect him to. But what he did do was use his hustle and smarts to get a very good Devils defenseman spun around, and Nikolai Ehlers was standing there by himself, and he banged it home. And to me, and the other assist we mentioned, that is on the Niederreiter goal. But the Jets needed more from Blake Wheeler. I talked about it in my mailbag about a week and a half ago. If the Jets can get Wheeler in that sweet spot in the 15 to 16 minute range instead of the 19 or 20, you're probably going to get a refreshed Blake Wheeler, and that's exactly what we saw. And I don't know. I'm going to ask you, because you were right there. Do you think he intentionally ignored my question about his own legs feeling recharged, or did he think I was using the royal we in terms of their team feeling fresher with the break that he referenced?
I didn't think he ignored your question. To be honest, no, okay, this isn't fair because I don't want to make it sound like I was almost surprised you asked the question.
Oh, I knew there could be a response, and I was ready for the edginess.
So, but I was surprised that you asked the question because I've said this before. I've talked about this. Asking Blake Wheeler a question is like preparing a legal document, right? Like you need to cross your I's, dot your T's. You have to make it so that there is.
It was intentional how I said it.
But I get it. But when you asked the question, I knew I could tell you this right off the bat. I knew he was going to turn to you and say, "Well, I answered that question in the first answer." Because but he didn't. For setting the scene, with everybody.
Indeed.
I asked the first two questions of Blake Wheeler, and then Ken asked the next one. And I'd asked Blake what has been different as of late that has explained the stark difference in results that they're getting. And one of the things that he suggested was the time off and the rest that the team has got coming off of the road had really allowed them to spark. And so when Ken asked the question about his legs, I had thought, if I know Blake Wheeler is going to say, I gave you that answer already. The answer is that I got a little bit of time off. I've been able to get my legs back underneath me. And that's why I'm playing the way that I'm playing. It is, I'll say this, Ken, it is interesting to hear those comments from Blake Wheeler, because what we're usually used to hearing from Blake Wheeler, I remember last year when he went on a stretch where he was putting up points and then he kind of went quiet after that. He was extremely defiant when journalists asked him questions about him producing the way he was, and his responses were along the lines of, what's changed? I'm as good, what are you watching? I'm as good as I've always been. I'm right where I was. Tonight, what we got from Blake Wheeler was him essentially saying, the game has changed. Players are faster. A big guy like me can't get around as much. I can't create the type of space that I used to create when I was on the ice. So having guys like Namestnikov creating space for me with his smarts, and having a guy like Nick Ehlers create space for me with his legs, has allowed me to operate in space. And I'm still pretty dangerous when I can operate in space, right? Which is why I've thought one of the last things to go for Blake Wheeler has been his power play points, because the power play gives him that room for him to wheel and deal and, dice teams apart and slice and dice with the passing that he's so capable of doing. But to me, it's interesting to hear a Blake Wheeler who talks openly about his mortality, and his ability to not be able to generate that space, but B, in his answer, which was essentially, I'm doing good right now because I got some rest and recovery time. And so he'd answer that in the first question. And I know what you're saying.
Yeah, but he was talking about the team in your question. No, he was talking about the team in that question.
He didn't need to talk about the team. I'm not saying that you wasted a question. What I'm saying of Blake Wheeler is I knew that when he was saying that, he was talking about the team, but he was very much talking about himself. And that's why he said, well, that's what I was trying to get at. There was some rest. I got some rest, and now my legs are moving. So I very much expected that response from him. Like I'd said with Blake Wheeler, two things. If you give him a way to get out of an answer and go in a different direction, he'll take it. But two, if you give him an opportunity to point out the fact that he thinks he's already asked the question, he will definitely hop all over that to make a journalist feel as though they're throwing away a question.
Yeah, well, here's the other part of that, Sean. His theory is fine, but the Jets also had 2-day break after the Kings game and before the Sharks game. And in that game, Blake was not skating the way he did on the weekend. And I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer here by any stretch. So I knew that could have gone any way, and I would have been fine if he had barked at me, and that would have been fine. But I was wanting to know how he felt, and he didn't care to really get into it that much outside of the question that he had already answered from you. That's true. I thought he was pretty insightful in how he dealt with the other questions about his mortality, as you mentioned. I thought that was pretty interesting. And
well, he used
don't you also thought it was interesting? Yeah, no, but don't you also think? I love this quote. This quote about Namestnikov that he gives is fantastic. He's not a guy that needs the puck or wants the puck all the time. He wants it, he'll give it back to you. Ehlers creates so much space. For me, I'm maybe a little bit past the part of creating a ton of space for myself, but to play with a guy that can put me in situations where I have time and space, I can still make some plays happen given those opportunities. And there too, Sean, much like we heard from Mark on Friday after an impressive game, there was the vintage Blake defiance in his voice. And quite frankly, I thought it was fine. I thought it was interesting. And I'm not surprised. This is him, right? This is him.
This to me is like you and I were in two different scrums. Because I didn't hear that defiance. I heard a Blake Wheeler that more so than ever before. Like the idea that you would have put it to Blake Wheeler that he is not the player that he was 5 years ago or 4 years ago in a question. And you didn't even have to say that. You just had to ask a question where he thought, I bet he's thinking this. Blake Wheeler would have bristled at that. I thought that Blake Wheeler was extremely... the word isn't accommodating, but Blake Wheeler in his answers today was very much like, look, I can do good. Blake Wheeler used to go out and he didn't need anyone's help. Blake Wheeler was the guy. Driver. He was the alpha male. He went out and he made things happen on the ice, and the Jets followed in his wake, and they had success based on him driving the bus. Blake Wheeler essentially in that said, listen, I'm not a guy who can do that anymore. But if you play with guys who can create the wake for me, I'm still pretty darn dangerous. So I didn't get the defiance in there.
Well, no, but
I understood his.
That is defiance, saying I'm still good.
Well, I don't.
He said it in a very. He said it in a very insightful manner.
I think you're just hearing defiance because he called you out on you wasting a question. That's all I think.
I thought he answered it in a very insightful manner. Let's get that out of the way, and in the questions later on.
I will say
what I'm saying is that there was the sparkle in Blake's eye. Basically, it wasn't quite to the point of it wasn't a what's changed scrum, Sean, but it was definitely a reports of my demise were a little early. I believe that is what I heard in his voice. Even though it wasn't in a defiant tone, that's what I heard.
Well, if he is, he's just speaking the truth, because Blake Wheeler's been one of the Jets' best players over the last 2 games. Yep. I've got no issue with a guy speaking the truth. And I will say this. It's funny because we've talked about the Vladislav Namestnikov moving up to that line, and we've been asking around on why that line works. And Rick's got his take on it. And Rick, a lot of it has to do with Rick is clearly a Namestnikov fan. Right?
Oh,
he likes him a lot, which is crazy because he shouldn't have taken him off the line in the first place. He seems like he is the number one cheerleader in the Vladdy Namestnikov fan club, and yet he's the guy who took Vladdy off of a spot he should not have been taken off of. But Blake Wheeler gave the best and most succinct explanation to us today of why that line works. Like, you put Nick Ehlers on a line with Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele, and it has not worked. It has not worked. It has been a train wreck. And all of a sudden you take Mark Scheifele, whose portfolio speaks for itself. There's no way that Vladislav Namestnikov is in the same caliber of player when it comes to the production of points and creating assists and things like that. But Blake Wheeler explained it. And we shouldn't be surprised by this. Blake Wheeler, as defiant as he can be, as much as he likes to lash out at the media or sometimes fans when they boo or whoever, he is a guy that when he does talk, he's a cerebral guy. He's extremely smart. He speaks extremely well. But to me, he perfectly sums up why the Namestnikov line works. And it's because Namestnikov creates space for players around him because he's smart. Ehlers creates space around him because he's fast, and that sucks players towards them. And Blake Wheeler has been able to step into the space that has been created by those players. And the space, this is the other part about it. The space that is being created is the space towards the front of the net. It is that line is drawing Blake Wheeler to the front of the net, which is where at this stage of his career, most definitely, Blake Wheeler is his most dangerous, and that's why that line is working. He gave a better explanation than Rick Bowness, who gives us great explanations all the time. Nick Ehlers also, I thought, why don't you give just a quick talk about that, Ken, before you give a shout out to Lou. But we talked to Nick Ehlers, and when we asked him about what he liked about playing with Vladislav Namestnikov, I thought Nick was having a little bit of a defiant press conference up until that point. And then when you asked him about Vladdy Namestnikov, actually, I was the one who asked him about Namestnikov, his eyes lit up and he just wanted to talk about Vladdy. Give me an idea of what you thought of his take.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because we know the relationship Nikolai Ehlers has with Paul Stastny and how much now both in the same day, Sean, both Nikolai Ehlers and Blake Wheeler post-game referenced ending last season on that line and how successful it was. They think that the cerebral nature of Namestnikov is very similar to that of Stastny. Obviously, Stastny at this point of his career is not as strong a skater as Namestnikov, but they play a similar game. The fact that they're willing to share, they don't need the puck on their stick all the time. Ehlers loves to have the puck in his stick. So the give and goes with Namestnikov are impressive, and Wheeler is still an elite level passer when he's on his game. So, yeah, I mean, I think I've said this now countless times in the last month. Signed Namestnikov yesterday to an extension. This is a guy who has been on a nomadic run of teams in the last stretch. He's played with a ton of different teams. He would love some security in his life, and I can't imagine the Jets not making him a multi-year offer. I'm not saying sign him to a 5-year deal, but I would sign him to at least a 2-year deal.
I was going to say
might
4.
consider a 3-year deal.
Get him down for 4.
So if you line him up with Ehlers, what have we been talking about for the last 3 years? Since Patrick Laine has left, Nikolai Ehlers has not had steady line mates. This is a guy he obviously plays well with. So if you're the Jets, you're not going to have to pay Namestnikov $5 million. And we've talked about balance a ton, Sean. So is Namestnikov necessarily a top 6 player when he was a 4th-line player with the Tampa Bay Lightning? No, not necessarily. But on the Jets and with Ehlers, a guy he clicks with, he can have the impact of the Bonino line with Kessel on the Penguins championship teams. So, sorry, not correct here about what? About Wheeler? Or where is that quote? How far back is that?
Don't get mad, Ken. Just live with
just
it.
enjoy your
live with
victory
it.
lap? Good.
Just
Good.
live with it.
Signed Namestnikov yesterday. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I got to say something. But Vic Ronis is are you mad, bro? Are you mad right now? Your comments.
It's good that he's here, Sean. It's good that usually he only comes to hammer things down after losses. So Vic, we're happy to see you sticking around among the 462 in the chat room. It
is funny. I'll say this. It is funny that he's calling out and saying that the media are sickening because of our pro Wheeler stance for years, when we've literally had viewers of this program leave the show and make a point of leaving the show because they thought that we were too hard on Blake Wheeler. I think that's absolutely hilarious. Ken, give a shout out to our main man, Sweet Lou.
Absolutely, folks. For the folks who have realty needs that need to be met, whether you're buying, whether you're selling, whether you're looking to see what that house on the corner of the street is worth, or if you're looking to perhaps relocate to another neighborhood, you can be in touch with our main man, Lou Ferlin, at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU at LOUFURLAN.ca. And his website with all of his listings, www.louferlin.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast, for which we are eternally grateful.
Absolutely love Sweet Lou. Ken, I wanted to bring something up here. I don't know about you, but Rick, or your take on this. Rick Bowness has been saying, and I asked him today because I'm trying to suss out the difference of why the Winnipeg Jets look like they have the last couple of games and why they've looked like they've looked basically for the calendar year of 2023. I wonder about Rick Bowness's take on this, because I basically asked him what the difference was.
I'm glad you asked.
Rick Bowness has said, that, they were basically getting all the same chances against San Jose and all this kind of stuff. I am not buying for a second, not for a single second, that the Winnipeg Jets game looked like this for the previous games before these last two, and they were just a team that wasn't getting puck luck or couldn't get the puck in the back of the net. This is an entirely different team in effort, in commitment to a system, in battle for the puck, in execution when they do get an opportunity, in going to the front of the net and capitalizing on things. I wanted your take. Are you buying what Rick Bowness is selling when he says that this has basically been the team we've seen for a long time, and now the puck's going in the net?
Absolutely not. I think Rick is selling. Let's put it this way. I think Rick is trying to convince his players that that's the case. I don't believe that that is the case. I didn't see that. You saw effort against the Anaheim Ducks? Absolutely, yes. I saw effort against the LA Kings. But, Sean, the LA Kings made the Jets look slow, and they took advantage of clean face-off wins, sure. But in that game, the Jets didn't go to the hard areas. They weren't willing to go to the hard areas the way that they did in this last 2-game stretch. They did not do that against the San Jose Sharks. And I know he referenced 26 scoring chances. I still don't see Reimer's 41 save shutout as being under siege. Did they have a lot of shots? Yes. Were they from the perimeter mostly? Yes. Were there chances, the Menelainen rebound chance after the Stenlund shot, was that a point-blank chance? Yes. It's the best point-blank chance they had outside of the paddle save Reimer made on Appleton on the puck that was rolling. I did not see this level of speed or pace from the Jets. And, Blake, his thought was that it was the rest that got them that jump. My counter would be the Jets had Sunday off and then had Monday's practice before they played Tuesday against the Sharks. Was it an end of a long stretch of games on the road in the month of March? Yes, it absolutely was. I have not seen this level of pace from the Jets, Sean, since the games against the Panthers and Lightning. Yes, they got wins against Arizona and Anaheim. I understand that. But this is not the same team. This is a team, and you referenced it in the opening also. The commitment at 6-0 was outstanding. Sean, outstanding. Blocking shots, battling, clearing out, boxing out, seal plays in the corner, shot blocks, going the extra mile, all of those things. We weren't seeing that earlier this month. The Jets were in disarray. Were they playing well for long stretches of time in those games, Sean? Yes, at times they were, but their mistakes would lead them to unravel, right? That's the one thing. That's the one piece of recognition that Rick has left away from the podium, and it's not an accident. It is intentional because he's seen what has happened to his team when they lack A, commitment, and B, confidence. Right now, they were very committed against two teams, and here the biggest thing for the Jets is this, Sean. We've seen them get a little bit high on their press clippings at times.
Yep.
The fact we were both there yesterday at the Hockey for All Center. Mason Appleton said, "There's no way we don't build on the momentum."
Yes.
And it's easy for someone to say that, but the Jets backed it up by their effort. Everything that Brendan Dillon said this morning was accurate. Get involved in the game as best that you can, whether that's throwing a hit, making a play, having a good shift, blocking a shot, using your speed, clearing the front of the net, whatever it is. That's what the Jets did. So can they do it now in their most important game of the season against the Calgary Flames? Well, we're sure as heck going to find out. And as you mentioned, you couldn't have said it better. Season-defining moment for the Winnipeg Jets on Wednesday.
Yeah,
There's no doubt in my mind.
Well, I'm going to tell you that leads to our home field dig deeper comment. It's time to throw a spotlight on the comments and choose a standout for the home field dig deeper award, and that is going to go to the point that Ken is making right now. That's going to go to Canadian Club, who says the only thing that matters is a win on Wednesday against the Flames. Now, I will say this. I don't think that a loss against the Flames puts the Jets out of things, But I do think that if the Jets win that game on Wednesday, that they are putting the final nail in the coffin of the Calgary Flames. And here's why I think that. This night was huge, but I think we should expect, regardless of the fact that the Calgary Flames are loving to play the tight wire act right now with teams outside of the playoffs, in their overtime comeback victory against the Vancouver Canucks, and their overtime comeback, not their overtime, but their late game comeback over the Anaheim Ducks on this night here. We should expect that they will beat the Chicago Blackhawks. But even if they do, they will come into the game against the Jets on Wednesday tied in the standings in points. The Jets will have the tiebreaker, but the Jets will also have a game in hand. And what that means is, even if the Calgary Flames win that game clean, they will be 2 points up on the Jets, but the Jets will have a game in hand. If they win that game in hand, they have the advantage. So what that means is, if the Winnipeg Jets, even if they lose the next game against the Calgary Flames, their fate is still going to be in their hands. Whereas the Calgary Flames, if they lose the game on Wednesday, not only will their destiny this season be out of their hands, but it will be very far out of their hands in that situation, with very few games left to make it all up. That's my take on it. But Canadian Club absolutely nailed it. And I want to say this. Thank you, Canadian Club, for your winning comment. And just like Canadian Club, Homefield is always going to dig deeper to find the best marketing solution for your company. Find out how at myhomefield.ca. And Canadian Club, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. I need your full name, and I need an email where I can send you your voucher for your very own Homefield/Kenny and Renny trunk shovel. It's a beauty, and we're probably going to need it, because I heard, Ken, we're getting 20 to 25 centimeters of snow coming up here. Canadian Club, direct message me right now, because you are going to need your trunk shovel. And listen, Canadian Club, if you get out stuck in a ditch somewhere and you think, man, I could sure use a trunk shovel right now, don't be blaming Renny for this. I gave you the shout out. It is time for you to get out and get your trunk shovel. And it is time for everyone else here to hit the like button. Go nail that thing. Nail it to the ground. We really appreciate everyone showing up here. Over 400 people in the chat room. Everyone brought it here tonight. Maul showed up. I don't know if he or she has hit the like button, but showed up to take the heat. What do you got?
Jeff, email me. I sent you my email yesterday after you reached out there, if you can. But you can DM either Sean or I about that.
No doubt. Yes, for sure. And while we're on tickets, let's do it one last time
buddy.
Here. Like I said, people, there's 250 person capacity, and as of right now, reservation for tickets is now below 60 spots left, and I still have spots I have to give away to media members. So I don't know how low that number is. All I can tell you is 60 spaces is artificially high. So listen, here's what's going to happen. The season's going to end at some point. Ken and I are going to set a date, and because you've all reached out and reserved to me, I've put down all your contact information. I will get a hold of you at that time to let you know what the date is going to be. Never mind that we're going to have some Kenny and Renny shows and talk about it. We know that not everyone is going to be able to make that show when it's time, so some of these reserved spots are going to open up. But I will tell you this, whoever gets on the list first is going to get in. If you want to guarantee your spot at the Kenny and Renny year-ender, which is going to be a banger, let me say, you need to get on the reserve list. So act now. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds, or direct message Ken. Or if you have other ways, you know how to get a hold of us. Make sure you do it. I've responded to everybody who's asked for a spot. So when I respond to you, you will know that you are on the list. But get on the list now. We want to have a good time with you at the end of the year. And let's be honest, $20 for all you can eat Trans-Canada Brewing Company pizza, which is amazing. And 2 drinks is a steal of a deal. We love a deal in Manitoba. And Ken and I wanted to make sure that we created a way to show everyone out there our appreciation for you. And to be able to spend some time with you is one way to do that. But to be able to give you basically a deal that you would never get anywhere else in the city in the process is how we wanted to make sure that we were showing you the admiration and respect we have for you and all the time that you choose to spend with us. So direct message me, direct message Ken, reach out to us, get on that list so you can make sure you can be in that room. Ken, you have something to say?
Yeah, just a quick one. I know you and I have talked about this privately. I know Lynn Reimer was in here earlier. I think she's flying home right now, but The folks in the chat, I know, Sean, you and I are thinking of Lynn as people who have lost parents. And we know the chat room has also been very good in terms of helping lift people up during some challenging times. Lynn lost her father recently, and we just want you to know we're thinking about you and sending our best to you and your entire family.
Yeah, I'll tell you, we've had these conversations with a lot of people on the show before. Ken and I have been there. We know what it's like. This is a place that we work to make sure, as much as we josh guys like Bick and some of the people who take the you-know-what out of both Ken and I, more me than Ken, because we know Ken can't handle it the way that I can. That's
or you deserve it, one or the other.
One of the two. I've got my opinion, you've got yours. But listen, we strive to make this a safe space that people can come on and talk about and feel like they're part of a community. We hope we're building a community. We feel you feel like community and family to us. So if this is a place that you need to go and have conversations, please feel free to do so. Kenny and Rennie's chat room is a safe space, and we fight to make sure that it is that way. Speaking of fighting, if you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, please appreciate our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, TransCanada Brewing Company, the Johnston Group, Lou Ferlin, and Homefield. Thank you so much to them. And thank you so much to all of you. This has been so much fun chatting with you on a 2-game win streak for the Winnipeg Jets. Like Ken had said, I used the words earlier on, Wednesday has the potential to be a season-defining game for the Winnipeg Jets, the way they played here tonight and the way that they have played against teams coming in on the second half of back-to-backs, pouncing all over them. I think it bodes well for them. Let's see if it turns out to be that way on Wednesday. Best way to talk about that is to show up here after the game on Kenny and Renny. We can't wait to see you then. Have a great evening, everybody, and enjoy the start of your week. And, hey, get your trunk shovels ready, everybody, because it's on its way. Talk to you later.
The Kenny and Renny Show is brought to you by Homefield, Cambrian Credit Union, Lou Ferlin, TransCanada Brewing, Vittorio Rossi, and Johnston Group.